Case 6014, the murder of golf instructor JimBob Jackson, was investigated by our Magnolia CSI team. JimBob Jackson was discovered at 7:30 p.m. on the 10th hole of the Houston Oaks Golf Course on April 8, 2009. Medical examinations revealed that the victim had fractures in his right femur, right phalange, mandible, and an extreme fracture to the top of his skull. The suspects were as followed: Mark Hibner, golfing partner and friend of victim; Bridget Manning, a nature-loving golfer who couldn't care less about the game; Panette Kelch, an arrogant competitor who thought she was as good as any male golfer; Roxy Halakakis, a meticulous golfer who strictly stood by the rules of the game; and Meg Ballard, a natural at golf but sometimes a cheater while competing. The Magnolia CSI has concluded that the murderer is no other than Panette Kelch. Other than disliking him for his egotistical ways, Kelch had a number of reasons to commit the crime against JimBob Jackson. First, there was Kelch's desire for sponsors. JimBob had a numerous amount of sponsors, and his death caused an availability of them. Secondly, Kelch had been rejected as a golfing partner by Jackson, who felt as though a woman could not compete in the same level as a man. Finally, there is reason to believe that Kelch had secret affections for Mark Hibner, Jackson's golfing partner. With Jackson out of the way, Hibner could join the foursome, excluding Bridget, and Kelch would be closer to him. We've recovered probative evidence in the way of blood, hair, and fingerprints that all point to Kelch as the perpetrator. Upon investigating the crime scene, we discovered human bones and fresh human remains of a severed foot in the sand bunker, in addition to the other evidence on the 10th hole. The remains were tested and discovered to belong to Mr. Rubin and Coach Kana, two Magnolia High School teachers who had been missing for some time. We have reason to believe that Kelch was responsible for the deaths of these men. Evidence collector Alfonso Plasencia will now discuss the evidence found and the connection to Panette Kelch.
Probative evidence in case 6014, the murder of Mr. JimBob Jackson. We have a golfing glove that was located next to the body. It belonged to a right-handed person. The glove has two people's blood on it. Through DNA testing, we determined that the blood was the victim's and Miss Kelch's. Miss Kelch's hair was also found on the Velcro of the glove. We have the green shirt. This belongs to Miss Kelch. The fibers on it match fibers that were found on the body of the victim. The shirt was found in Miss Meg Ballard's office. Miss Kelch gave it to Miss Ballard to hem. We have the golf club. This was found in Miss Halakakis' office. Miss Kelch gave it to Miss Halakakis to be fixed because it was broken right here. The victim's blood was found on it, and we believe this is the weapon that was used.
Assistant Lead Investigator Anthony Apolinar will now explain the questioning process and serving of search warrants.
Okay, we went to question 4 out of the 5 suspects of JimBob Jackson's murder. We had already eliminated Bridget Manning because there was no evidence or motive that led us towards her. The first suspect question was Panette Kelch. She seemed kind of nervous, and she hesitated whenever we asked her what kind of clothing she wears, and she said mostly green. She talked badly about JimBob, said that he was arrogant and flirted with every woman. She said that Mark Hibner used him to get into the club. She asked her about Rubin and Kana and said that they were the same as JimBob, arrogant. She believed she was the best out of the 4. She owns a 38 Special Ruger, a 20 gauge shotgun, and she's right-handed. Our second suspect was Mark Hibner. He was calm when questioned. He was JimBob's golf partner. He said that there was some confrontation between JimBob and the foursome, and he also said that he's seen the foursome but is not familiar with them. He left at the club at dusk, and he owns a rifle, 2 shotguns, a pistol, 29mm Ruger, and he's right-handed. Our third suspect is Roxy Halakakis. She was calm when questioned. She's one of the foursome. Said she's had confrontation with Miss Kelch during, I guess, problems keeping score. She believes she's the best of the foursome. Said that Bridget was the worst, and she only wanted to be there to be close to nature, another reason why we eliminated her. She left around 3 from the club. She was wearing a glove that day. She said the coach gave coach gave her a platter that belonged to Mrs. Coach and ran over it with a golf cart and wanted it to get fixed. So she still had it with her, and she's left-handed. Our first suspect was Meg Miller. She was confident and answered the questions easily. She believed everyone was jealous of her natural talent, especially Roxy. She said that if Coach wanted to be with the guys, she thought JimBob was.
Our hair analyst, Kayla Hawley, will now explain the details of the fibers and hairs matched during the investigation.
At case number 6041, we found this glove at the crime scene where we extracted a hair that was in between the Velcro creases, and the hair was a possible match to Ms. Kelch. The other suspects we decided that they didn't match because the measurements weren't consistent, and Mrs. Kelch's and the hair that we found were both light brown, no present medulla, and they were straight. And the fibers we found this green shirt in Miss Ballard's room that seemed to belong to Miss Kelch, and we had a green fiber that we found at the crime scene, and they both matched, and the sodium hydroxide concluded that both fibers matched and that they were both rayon.
Our fingerprint analyst, Bailey Simpson, will now discuss the fingerprinting process and the fingerprint evidence.
Out of all the evidence found at the crime scene, 11 different items were sent in for fingerprinting, and all of these items were put through various testing, including dusting, cyanoacrylate fuming, and the use of ninhydrin. And after all these tests, only 6 items were able to have fingerprints lifted off. And though we lifted prints off of all these items, the prints were too obscure to make any positive matches. So we dusted the golf club we found in Ms. Halakakis' office, which was later concluded to be the murder weapon. And a single print lifted off the shaft of the club was examined, and 2 bifurcations concluded that it was a positive match to the right index finger at Kelch.
The photographs and sketch of the crime scene were recorded and analyzed by our sketch expert, Rachel Golding.
On April 8, 2009, Mark Hibner and JimBob Jackson had gone out to practice before the Augusta Pines National. That same day, the women's foursome had gone out to get in some extra practicing time. The women were playing in front of Hibner and Jackson, and because of Roxy's sluggish strategy, they were slowing down the men as well. Jackson and Hibner began to heckle the women about speeding up the game. When it came to the 10th hole, Bridget and Meg had had enough and decided to go home. Kelch and Halakakis proceeded. Hibner grew frustrated, lost his patience, and threw his golf club down on the green. JimBob continued his harassment of the slow-moving ladies. The ridicule caused Roxy to miss her putt and hit the ball into the far left corner of the 10th hole. After putting one into the hole, the first attack on JimBob Jackson was believed to have happened. The first blow was to the victim's femur, causing his knees to buckle and his head to be in perfect range for the next blow to the head. After the head trauma, the victim fell against the nearest tree, fracturing his mandible and knocking three of his teeth out of his head. As the body turned and he fell to the ground, Kelch went in for one more hit. With what strength he had left, Jackson tried to block his hit with his right hand. While his attempt caused a fracture in his right phalange, it also forced the golf club back into Kelch's mouth, drawing a bit of blood. Kelch finished her attack, wiped the blood from her mouth, and tried to wipe Jackson's blood from the head of her golf club. In an attempt to hide the evidence, Kelch took off her glove behind the tree, gave her broken golf club to Roxy to repair, and gave her shirt, which contained Jackson's blood, to Mrs. Ballard. She had hoped to pull out all the evidence and put it in hands of other suspects, but her efforts failed because the evidence does not lie. The body was found approximately 30 feet at the north end of the green, approximately 2 feet away from the hole, and based on the evidence that we recovered from the crime scene, the scenario just presented becomes plausible.
Due to the evidence discovered and the consistencies of Mr. Jackson's murder to the murders of Mr. Khanna and Mr. Rubin, we have reason to believe that Mrs. Kelch's murder was not only passionate, but also a repetition of previous murders, hinting that